With Kamaru Usman's bounce back win at UFC Atlanta, I feel like the welterweight division is the most wide open one in the UFC right now. We've had this surge of rising young contenders, but you still have these veteran former champions kind of hanging around like a Kamaru Usman. And so I thought it would be interesting to go through and make an active welterweight tier list, splitting these guys up into different tiers. I think you could make a case for 3, 4, maybe 5 guys to be ranked number 1, which I don't think is something you can say for pretty much any other weight class. So we're going to be going 17 deep here, obviously the champion, the top 15 in the rankings, and then I'll also be including Islam Makhachev since he is moving up, likely to challenge JDM. Let me know your thoughts down below. Yell at me who should be higher, who should be lower. But let's just dive right into it here. And starting off in tier 5, this is actually going to be a one-man tier for me here. I have Colby Covington. I think at this point, Colby Covington is by far the worst ranked fighter in the weight class. You look at his last couple of fights, and you can say, all right, pretty tough strength of schedule, right? A title loss to Leon Edwards, and then Joaquin Buckley, who was on a roll prior to the Usman fight. But then I think about those guys' subsequent matchups, who they lost to, how they lost. Leon Edwards loses a somewhat competitive, but like 3-2 decision to Bilal, where Bilal had a very grappling heavy style. And then he gets completely dominated by Sean Brady on the ground. Joaquin Buckley loses to Kamaru Usman, and all of a sudden looks like, he can't stuff a takedown to save his life. And the way those guys lost, like those should have been amazing matchups for Colby Covington. Like the Bilal Muhammad game plan that Bilal put out there against Leon is like the fight that Colby would have fought and won in 2019, 2020, 2021, he's just not that guy anymore. Same thing with Joaquin Buckley. Like he made Joaquin Buckley look like an amazing grappler because Colby would shoot and Buckley would just be tossing him around. And then you see what Usman could do, take him down easily, control him with pretty much no resistance. And then you just have to look at Colby and be like, what is his current form? He has not won a fight since 2022. He hasn't beaten someone like even relatively in their prime since like RDA all the way back in 2018. So I think Colby's done. The blueprint on these guys is what should have been like his style and what he was able to do, 4 or 5 years ago. We're just not at that time period anymore. So Colby Covington is going to be the only guy here in tier 5. Now moving into tier 4, kind of tough to like really differentiate these guys because matchups matter. Like certain dudes I have ranked lower might be able to beat guys ranked higher, but I'm going to start off this tier with Gilbert Burns. He is riding a 4-fight losing streak. He's coming off a pretty quick and decisive round 1 KO against Michael Morales. Now, I still think there are a few winnable fights in this weight class for Gilbert Burns within the top 15, but I think just against most people, he's going to be mismatched against some of these top strikers. And then he also doesn't really have like the offensive wrestling to consistently take those guys down and get his jiu-jitsu going. And then I also don't think he's going to do great against the top grapplers. We saw how he did against Bilal, against Sean Brady. Like those guys had decent success against him, even on the feet. And he's turning 39 years old next month. He's clearly out of his prime. So he is going to be at the bottom of this tier 4. Then I'm going to go with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. It's clear he's well out of his prime. The dude is 42 years old, but he is still very, very good, and I think he's still competitive with a lot of dudes here. He does have a 1-4 record in his last 5, 2 decision losses to Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad. Then he had the win against Kevin Holland. Then he was subbed by Shavkat, knocked out by Joaquin Buckley in a fight that personally I thought he was up 2-0. Don't think the judges agreed, but it was a very competitive fight up until the knockout, and I thought he was fighting a very solid fight. Now, he's always going to struggle with the grapplers, right? Even a guy like Gilbert Burns at this stage in his career could still give him some issues. Obviously, like the Bilals, the Sean Bradys, Shavkat, those matchups are not going to go well for Wonderboy. But I think there are still plenty of strikers, even guys ranked way higher than him, that he would still be very competitive with. Like all these names, Leon, Ian Gary, Joaquin Buckley, Jeff Neal, Carlos Prates, Kevin Holland, MVP. I'm not saying he goes out there and beats all of these guys or outclasses them, but I think they're very competitive matchups, and if you are not going to take him down and clinch him, he is truly going to be in any fight, even if he's 43, 44, 45, that just is the skill set he has. And I think even a guy like Colby Covington, I know he's more grappling heavy. I think this stage of Wonderboy, beats Colby Covington. That might be a hot take, but Colby's just looked so flat that I do think that is a fight that Wonderboy could win. After Wonderboy, I have Jeff Neal, and inactivity has really kind of just stalled his momentum over the last few years. He fought one time in 2022, one time in 2023. He did fight twice in 2024, but then has pulled out of his fight in 2025 and has not been rebooked. He has a 1-2 record in his last 3, but like the losses have come to legit competition. Split decision loss to Ian Gary, and then he was subbed by Shavkat, but was really the first dude to like really show resistance against him in the UFC. I still think Jeff Neal is going to be a tough out for most dudes. I just don't really think he has like a difference-making skill set that separates him from a lot of these guys. So like maybe he's slightly better than some of the older veterans that I mentioned, but like I still think against some of them he's in like competitive fights. Like would I pick him against Wonderboy right now? Probably not, but like probably take him against Gilbert Burns. Like good boxing, solid striker, like not super easy to take down, just overall doesn't have like that super dynamic skill where I'm like, I can count on this in a fight. After Jeff Neal, going to go with Kevin Holland, and I actually think he's pretty interesting at 170. Glad he's kind of, I guess, think he committed to staying down here, at least in the short term. Has a huge frame for the weight class, 6'3". You look at his losses here as of late. Like he's losing to Wonderboy in a fight that he could have won if he didn't fight like a complete idiot. Split decision loss to the champion JDM, and then MVP, who's like is just going to be a bad matchup for him because Kevin Holland doesn't have the wrestling to consistently take him down. But he has a big frame, can actually stuff takedowns in this weight class. He's going to hit hard, even more power than he had at 185. And so he's probably going to hang around in like the 10 to 15 area, but could pick up a big win somewhere. Going to get a lot of opportunities, fun fighter, going to stay active. Then I have someone that Kevin Holland fought. I have Michael Venom Page. Now, he might be a middleweight at this point, right? He went up and took that fight against Shara Bullet. Seemed like it was a one-time thing. Now he's getting another matchup up at 185 against Jared Cannonier, but I'll still rank him here. He's in the rankings. The thing with MVP is that if you cannot clinch and control him, you're essentially screwed. Like, even some of the best strikers in the world, he's just so hard to hit on the feet. He has such a unique style. He keeps this crazy range where he's just able to dart in and out, but he doesn't throw a ton of volume, so it's not like you have a million opportunities to like catch him coming in with an elbow or something. Like he picks the shot so well, so creative, you can't really emulate him in training, and he's just a really, really tough puzzle to solve. Now he's going to struggle against anyone that can take him down and clinch him. Even a guy like Ian Gary, who doesn't have like amazing wrestling, was still able to rack up that control time to win the fight. But against a lot of these other strikers, like even a Carlos Prates, we saw it against Kevin Holland, Jeff Neal, like a Wonderboy. Like I think he has a lot of success with those matchups against guys that don't have the ability to just, control grapple him. Now breaking into tier 3, going to start off this tier with Carlos Prates, coming off somewhat of a frustrating performance against Ian Gary. But I think even in that fight, his potential is still very, very high in this weight class. He has danger factor on the feet that only a few guys can match in this division. 5-round cardio like we saw, 1 rounds 4 and 5 against Ian Gary. Now we might struggle against some of the better grapplers in the weight class. Like Ian Gary had some success, 4 for 19 on takedowns, 3 minutes of control time. That's probably a lot worse against like a Sean Brady, a Bilal, a Kamaru Usman, but like super explosive, super dangerous, super powerful. I think this is a fair spot to have him at this point, and he definitely could rise moving forward. Then I'm going to go with Joaquin Buckley, coming off a pretty disappointing performance against Kamaru Usman. He just had 0 answers for Usman's wrestling, and then also 0 answers off of his back. But I still think there were some positives to take away from that fight. The thing that really stood out to me was the cardio. Joaquin Buckley has insane cardio when you consider his build and his fight style. So in a fight that like wasn't really taking place in his optimal spot, right? He was getting control grappled, he was getting taken down, and he throws these like super explosive, powerful combinations, and he looked completely fresh in round 5. That's a pretty rare skill set just for how muscle bound he is. He's only 31 years old. He's going to have some room to grow. Obviously, with his skill set right now, like he's going to struggle probably with the Bilal Muhammad's, the Sean Brady's, but like anyone he's striking with, he's going to give them some problems. The durability's been there at 170. He hits very hard. He's explosive, super physical. So I think this is a fair spot in tier 3. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Leon Edwards. I think you could make a case for Leon being higher or lower. It's tough to put him, at least in my opinion, much lower than this because like he was literally the champion less than a year ago. But it does seem like he's kind of on the start of a potentially steep decline. He's on back-to-back losses, lost a decision to Bilal, and it was completely dominated by Sean Brady. And it does kind of seem like the blueprint has been laid out for how you beat him. The thing is, though, like, not everyone can go in and wrestle like a Bilal or Sean Brady and have that cardio over 5 rounds and consistently be able to take him down, right? Like Michael Morales, a Joaquin Buckley, Carlos Prates, like I don't think those guys are going to be able to go in and actually like institute that game plan. It's just not going to happen. So maybe he's had some like bad luck just in terms of the dudes he's run against. Like if that is the way to beat Leon Edwards, you just push a pace, try to consistently take him down, then he's kind of faced some pretty tough competition, right? The 2 Usman fights, into Colby Covington, into Bilal, and then into Sean Brady. Like he pretty much fought every top grappler in the division in succession. And so when he starts getting into some of these matchups with the strikers, and he's actually the guy who might be able to mix things up, I think we could see some much better performances out of him. Now moving into tier 2, I think this is where we're probably going to start to get into a lot of the disagreements. Like I talked about at the top, like it's like this transitional period where since you have so many young guys, a lot of them haven't fought each other. So like they haven't fought the young guys, but they're also now just kind of getting the opportunities to fight some of the veterans. So it's tough to compare these guys that, you know, maybe were former champions, what's their current skill set versus, you know, where are the young guys at right now today. And so in this tier, I'm going to start off for like the bottom of this tier. I have Bilal Muhammad. Now, this might seem low. I mean, the dude was literally the champion like a month ago, but he's 36 years old. I think he has a style that probably doesn't age super well, kind of relying on his cardio, his durability. He just took a lot of damage in that fight against JDM. And then I also think he just has way less finishing upside than the guys ahead of him. When you go into a fight and you essentially have no chance of finishing the other dude, it does just kind of put you on the back foot when the other dude could spark your lights out at any point. And that's kind of how it felt in the JDM fight, where it's like, yeah, Bilal could win a decision, but JDM could win a decision, or he could just spark Bilal out at literally any point in the fight. And then I think you just start to look at some of the other names, and it's like, yeah, 8 might seem low, but is he going to be the betting favorite against Usman, Ian Gary, Michael Morales, Shavkat, Sean Brady, Islam Makhachev? Like, maybe the odds are close, and I'm not saying he, like, wouldn't beat any of those dudes, but just thinking about it right now, like, I probably wouldn't be picking him, and maybe I'm underrating him again, but I don't know. I just think you have these young dudes that are probably going to lap him or have lapped him at this point. Like, Usman, I probably still favor him, so Bilal is going to come in here at number 8. Then at number 7, I have Michael Morales, and I did consider having him higher. I think he's arguably the most dangerous fighter in this weight class. So powerful, so explosive, big frame for the weight class. What kind of held me back is just the fact that he's very, very untested. Like his best win, his highest level opponent is kind of like a washed up Gilbert Burns. And so like, I don't know, this could be a Joaquin Buckley situation where he gets a legit test and all of a sudden the dude can't stuff a takedown or he's just kind of getting exposed. He is still, you know, like I said, he's raw. We don't know about his takedown defense. Also not like the cleanest on the feet. Like he can kind of overthrow, could set himself up to get countered. But just in terms of his physical advantages, his ceiling is so high. And I think he's probably the betting favorite against the vast majority of the dudes here in this top 15. At number 6, going to go with Kamaru Usman. I'm guessing this is going to be controversial. I think people are going to want him higher. Now, I can't say with confidence like how fights with Ian Gary, Shavkat, JDM, Sean Brady, Islam Makhachev are going to go, but I would probably favor those dudes over Usman at this point. I was super happy to see him get the win. It's very rare that a guy in that spot, former champion on a losing streak with that kind of layoff, comes out and actually like beats the up-and-coming prospect. Like typically that's the showcase fight for Joaquin Buckley to get over, you know, kind of make his push towards the title shot. But I thought Usman looked good. He looked to be in good shape. His takedown shots looked quick, was able to rack up a lot of control time, but we didn't really get to see the full arsenal because he really didn't need to show a lot on the feet. He really just looked to stay safe before he could, you know, get a good entry and just lock down the takedown because he knew he just needed one. and Joaquin Buckley wouldn't have been able to stop it. And so he's probably not going to go out there and run through guys like Shavkat, Sean Brady, Islam Makhachev with his grappling. And how does his striking at this point in his career kind of hold up to those dudes? And even a guy like Ian Gary, I think, has proven to have really solid grappling defense like we saw in the Shavkat fight, and I do think is the better striker at this point. And then same thing with a guy like JDM, right? Like showed legit takedown defense against Bilal. So I think some people maybe are going to overreact to the win against Joaquin Buckley. And, maybe you're right. I'm just not going to get, way over the moon here with Kamaru Usman. I'm going to have him here at number 6. At number 5, going to go with Ian Gary. And I think of the dudes in tier 2, maybe with the exception of Bilal, Ian Gary's probably the least athletically gifted guy in that top 8, but he has such a high fight IQ for being only 27 years old. He's a clean striker. He manages distance very, very well. He's shown some significant grappling improvements over the last few years, both defensively, like we saw against Shavkat, and then also offensively, and he was able to use that against Carlos Prates. I just think he's a really tough out for everyone at welterweight. It's not going to be easy to go in there and just run through Ian Gary. He's going to fight super smart. He's going to come prepared, and he's going to give a lot of these dudes a really tough fight. And then the last guy, I guess the top guy I have here in tier 2, is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, admittedly, it's kind of tough to rank him given his injury situation, his inactivity. He was banged up heading into the Ian Gary fight. Now he likely won't be back until 2026. But outside of that Ian Gary fight, he has been very dominant in the UFC and throughout his entire career. 8 knockout wins, 10 submission wins, only gone to decision a single time. He's so well-rounded. And I do think in an alternate universe, if Bilal doesn't get injured when Shavkat had that title fight, we could be easily viewing Shavkat as the number 1 at welterweight, and he might be fighting Islam Makhachev, right? I would have picked him to beat Bilal in that matchup, and all of a sudden he could be champion, and we're looking at him completely differently. But the injury situation is what's kind of limiting his ranking here. And then we are going to break into the top 3 here in tier 1. And I think you could make a case for either of these 3 dudes to be the top dog. I certainly thought about all 3 who were kind of in the mix here. At number 3, I ended up going with Sean Brady. Now, I think Sean Brady is the best grappler in this weight class. He has suffocating top pressure, real submission skills. He has proven 5-round cardio. We saw him go the distance against Gilbert Burns. The cardio looked great in the Leon Edwards fight. His striking's good enough to, set up his grappling, set up his wrestling. I do think there are questions on how he looks against someone who is super well-rounded, like an Islam Makhachev type, because we saw against Bilal, couldn't get the takedowns. All of a sudden he's getting finished on the feet. If his, wrestling, his grappling is just negated, how does he look? Now, that's also a pretty high bar, right? Because he is such an amazing grappler that maybe there's only 1 or 2 dudes in this weight class that can actually consistently stuff his takedowns and get him off of them. But I do think it's interesting. I think Sean Brady's going to fight for the belt. I would not be shocked if he's a champion at some point. The dude is very, very good. Then at number 2, I went with the current champion, Jack Della Maddalena, coming off a very impressive performance against Bilal Muhammad. I think the most impressive thing about it, obviously he beat him up on the feet, looked great striking. It was his takedown defense and how he completely transformed it over the last year plus. You look at that Gilbert Burns fight. Gilbert Burns, not a great offensive wrestler, was able to take him down at will. And within a year's time, which by the way, he was injured for a large part of with a broken arm, he all of a sudden went in and just negated a lot of Bilal's wrestling. I think he has the best boxing in the weight class. He hits hard. He's durable. He has 5-round cardio. That combination of being able to stuff takedowns, being durable, being dangerous, and having cardio, that is going to be a tough out for every single fighter in this weight class. And if you cannot consistently take him down, you're going to be in for a very, very long night. JDM comes in here at number 2. And then at number 1, I'm sure you could guess it, it is going to be Islam Makhachev. Now, I definitely understand if you don't want him this high. He's never fought in the weight class, but this isn't a situation where he's moving up into a weight class with a super established, dominant champion. If I were to do this at lightweight right now, Ilya Topuria would be my number 1. He hasn't fought at 155 aside from the Jai Herbert fight, but if Islam Makhachev's moving up, I think Ilya is the best 155er. I think Islam Makhachev is the best welterweight. Now, he's not going to be this massive welterweight like he was a pretty big 155er, but he also has a frame where he's not going to be super tiny at this weight class. He's not going to be undersized, probably going to be more of an average welterweight. He's so well-rounded. He doesn't need his wrestling to be dominant. He can get it done on the feet. He's dangerous everywhere. I do think he is and will be the betting favorite against JDM. And as of right now, I am leaning towards him winning that fight. And then I think you just look at the way he matches up with everyone in this weight class. I don't really think you can have a bad matchup necessarily against him. Like, honestly, maybe if there's a bad matchup, it would be Ilya, just with the potential grappling defense, the power he brings. But when I'm looking at this weight class, I'm not seeing someone who would have really impressive takedown defense while also having just nuclear one punch power. JDM's powerful, but not in the same way Ilya is. And so just with Islam's style, how well rounded he is, it's going to be tough for someone to go in there and beat him unless they find a finish. I have Islam Makhachev here at number 1, but would love to hear what you guys think. Who's your number 1? Who's your top 3? Let me hear it down below. Thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.